to another coffee talk. Today I made myself just a decaf Nespresso pod. I got some recommendations of creamers to try, and today I'm trying, or I've actually already tried it. I'm liking the Elmhurst. I went with the oat French vanilla, but I also did buy the almond one. I'm going to try that one next, and it is very good. My only bone to pick, and it was actually picked, the bone was also picked by the person that commented it, is that it was $7 on sale for that small little carton. So it does have less ingredients. They're all ingredients, I understand. I do like that, but still not loving the price. I'm having a decaf treat coffee. Cheers. And I'm trying to decipher if the idea I have for today's coffee talk would be kind of weird. My intention would be for it to be a warm, comforting space that you could go to, specifically during if you're following or tracking your cycle, like during your menstruation cycle. I got jump scared by my own menstrual week this morning, and it caught me so off guard, but makes so much sense because my cycle is only just returning right now. I'm basically having to relearn her. I'm having to rediscover all of the little hints that my body is constantly, putting off, but also like translating to my brain. And the more sensitive I get to those little hints and the more that I track, the better I'm going to get at understanding my cycle, right? And like understanding how my hormones affect me. Winter is kind of a nice time to do that because there's less distractions. You're at home more usually, or I'm definitely like hibernating more. Just in that hibernation season, I feel like it is a really nice time to open up the concentration channel, to devote a little bit of time to just tracking how you're feeling every day, what your body's kind of doing on a baseline level every day. Like, are you warmer today? Are you more irritable today? Things like that. And as I do that, I plan to start incorporating more intentional choices, intentional practices during specific weeks, and just kind of like chip away at it each cycle. So if I lean into something that I found really beneficial this week, then a month from now I might try it again. But if it doesn't work, like basically what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be rigid, it doesn't have to be set in stone, and it also doesn't have to be what is already circling around online. I do love that there's a lot more concentration on women's health online, and just even cycle tracking, how that's become a more popular idea. However, what works for one might not work for another. So a good example of this could be, for the most part, you would think during your menstrual week, you would want more low impact workouts, stuff that is more slow, more gentle. And for the most part, that's probably true, but there have been times, or even, it's not even necessarily like person to person. It could also be different cycle to cycle, that sometimes, given perhaps other energies that you are experiencing or that are co-playing with the hormonal cycle that you're in, you might actually find you want to do more sweaty workouts, or more intense movement, or more like shaky movement, like stress relief movement, which is not as gentle and not as slow. So that's why I think the tracking part is important, of just keeping track of what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what you're leaning into, or finding your body, your whole self just being like, this is exactly what I feel like I need to do right now. So one of those things that I'm going to start this time around is lighting. I have this new moon candle. So symbolically, this is going to be my new candle that I light to signify both the start of a new cycle, but also a little bit of like that winter hermit energy, lighting your lantern, lighting your candle, lighting your time, even though I'm not technically alone, but like your time, your you time. The idea of moving slower, like just accepting that I'm not going to be in a super hyper productive state right now, and almost finding a way to relax into that, and you can still get stuff done, like, yeah, I might not get 10 things done off my list today, but I can still take the slower intrinsic energy into one or two things today and get them done in a different way. Like a week that you do get your cycle, it's worth slowing down and just being more gentle with yourself, if that makes sense, if that clicks. Hi, are you chewing my fingers? But finding a way to work that into some of the things that you still really want to do, or really have to do. This is the latest edition and the final edition to my book stack. I just got it this weekend. Went to the bookstore with my sister, one of my favorite pastimes, and I specifically went looking for a grimoire book. And I've been using, up until now, or up until this weekend, I was using just my journal as part of my grimoire. But now I wanted a book separately just for my grimoire. And let me explain to you what I mean when I call this book a grimoire, because this is me keeping a textbook of things that I use intentionally, or I plant intentionality into. So, do I believe that putting cinnamon in my coffee is going to give me a little burst of extra energy, or a little more, open my heart chakra more? I mean, I don't know. It's the chicken or the egg question. Does it work because cinnamon has the power? Or does it work because I give cinnamon the power by setting that intention? Now I'm going to go, if I had to choose, I'm going to go with, I think that when we set intentions, or when we subconsciously believe things, then they reflect in our material world. And so if you can use that to your better knowledge, or use that to your better, use that to use that power of knowledge, then you can plant intentions into the things in the material world around you, and then use them to kind of play with the magic of life, right? Like, that's the way I see it. So right now, from page 6 onwards, everything is for winter. So whatever I write about, for instance, like teas that I'm drinking this winter, those would be my winter teas. And then in the future, if it's a different season, if it's spring, I'll have a different section for teas, but those will be teas in the spring. And a lot of these things might overlap, but every time I rewrite them down, to me, it's just kind of cementing it a bit more in place, or learning that knowledge and sprinkling it somewhere else. So like certain herbs or certain teas or certain practices I might enjoy in the winter, I might also enjoy in spring or summer. For instance, on the first page I have of winter, it's the pot humidifier, or little air infusions that I've been making on the stove because our air has been so dry. I pop a pot on the stove, put some water in it, and I let it simmer. And in it, I'll put things like cinnamon sticks or orange peels or cloves, and what those things signify. But you can put mint in there. There's so many different little things you could put in, not to just give the aroma of that smell, but also if it works for you, if you believe this kind of thing, or if you set these kind of intentions, like cinnamon being for comfort, for warmth, for protection, for energy. And then I'm just using some of my animal spirit deck cards as little bookmarks. So winter, she got the snake. That is my new favorite notebook. I'm really excited about it, which is why I wanted to tell you about it. Your planner is more of a manifestation journal than your everyday random notebook journal. And the reason why is because this is where you actually plant the seeds, right? That is where you craft the seed. You come up, or you download whatever it is that you're wanting to manifest. But this is the book that actually brings it into the material world. Your planner, because you got to plan things. You got to pick a direction and walk in it, and then let the universe meet you halfway, right? This is where I keep my monthly tracking and my daily tracking. Point forming things like woke up warm, was really hungry, was bloated, did some somatic work and some somatic movement, was really tired, was really tired, was really tired, was really tired. Yeah, and then my daily, or this is actually more of my weekly, but this is where I've been tracking more of like my habits, my 3 habits, my to-do lists for the day. That is my notebook stack, and I'm really happy with it. I feel like this is what is going to generate my magic for 2025. Speaking of which, something that I thought of today, it relates to the cycle thing, and it's the idea that we tend to count our cycles on the first day of your period, right? So like whenever your cycle starts, that's the start of a brand new cycle. The new moon is the start of a new lunar cycle. It's the start of the new, it's gaining clarity. It's letting go of the cycle before and moving into a whole new rise and fall of energy, or cycle of hormones. Sorry, he's just literally smiling. And it's interesting because when you look at the similar or overlapping symbology of the different cycles that we all experience, and you overlap the seasons with the cycles of the moon and with the cycle, like the menstruation cycle, then the new moon is winter. My new year doesn't start until March. Like, March is actually the start of a new cycle. It's my personal new year. Winter is a time for rest. And I still believe all of that to be true. I just think that maybe it's actually not as wrong as it seems if the new moon tracks the beginning of a new cycle. And the start of your menstruation cycle is considered to be the start of the new cycle. You start in your rest and your recharge. We start with the new moon. We start with the darkest time And then we move into the fullness of, we move into the fullness of the full moon. We move into the fullness of the light. We move into the peak of ovulation. And then we descend back into winter. And winter really is the new beginning. Winter really is the clarity, the letting go. So I think we actually kind of got it right. It's great news worldwide, because that means we don't have to change the calendar that we're following. It's actually right. Winter is the fresh start, the new beginning. The only thing we got wrong is that we're meant to like dive in with active energy, which even that I'm questioning myself as I say that, because actually I think that seems like it's more of an individual choice, but just on a collective, like just because nature isn't new until spring or doesn't come back alive until spring doesn't mean that that's the real true new beginning. The new beginning is the rest. It's what comes before the new life. All right, Healing Mantra Deck, Matt Kahn, 52 cards, 52 weeks. We are on we started the week of Christmas, so I think we're on week 4, I think. And the next card is Inviting Ecstasy. Ooh. And the back or the mantra of the card says, I am worthy of all the pleasure my heart desires. And that's an interesting mantra. Inviting pleasures into our heart's desire. Well, yeah, it's not just pleasure, it's the pleasure of your heart's desire. Pleasure is another energy or another experience of being a human that I think has been, I use the word hijacked, but I mean that it has been tapped into. The pleasure parts of our brains, the things that light up when we're experiencing pleasure, there have been enough studies on it to now see the manifestations of things that have been put, I think purposely put out into the world so that they kind of take over our pleasure centers and cause us to become consciousless consumers. That was a lot of like blah, 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 blah. I feel like I was like stepping over myself a little bit there. But what I mean by that is when you think about the overconsumption of, well, just period. If you just think about overconsumption and why it's become such a huge problem is because of the pleasure centers of our brains. The problem is that we're almost fed false or really short-lived pleasure, really fast hits of dopamine that we didn't actually really have to work hard for. And then our pleasure centers start to change. And then we require more and more like intense levels in order to reach those pleasures or that experience, that high. And so that ecstasy. And so this is an interesting card because to me, I feel like as I'm working on consciously unwiring a lot of my own pleasure centers and what they've like hooked into as fast relief of the stress of life, right now, I feel like is a new time to as I'm like pulling those cords, the things that I'm intentionally plugging back into as a state or as a form of pleasure. And so, yeah, like moving slow, being soft, wearing things that are soft, but also indulging in rest or nourishing foods, easy to digest, being soft on our bodies, being like kind with like soups and stews and herbal teas and things that are going to warm us up from inside. It doesn't matter what pleasure has been hijacked, but all of them relate back to our senses. So if you can pull back on a lot of like sensory pleasures in a way that is going to link you back to choosing pleasures with more intention. Part of the thing I'm excited about with coming back to cycle tracking is being able to infuse a little bit more of intention during times where I have a reminder to do so. Like treat my heart's desires a little bit, treat my senses a little bit, and just be softer with myself. Like I have an external, even though it's not really external, but like an external alarm now to remind myself to just be a bit more intentional in doing those things at least monthly, at least once a month. I'll read what the deck book says. When ecstasy is invited, you feel aligned and ready to receive all of the miraculous, joyful gifts of experience the universe is ready to provide you. Ecstasy acts as a cosmic green light that grants your destiny permission to enter. In many instances, pain can be healed and released once a healthy relationship with pleasure is reestablished. Wow. In many instances, pain you might be experiencing can be healed and released once a healthy relationship with pleasure is established. I like that idea, especially again, if you are someone that has painful cycles, that especially could be relevant to the context of what we've been talking about, but just in general too, like any kind of pain. The mantra is ideal for increasing your self-worth, elevating levels of excitement, and allowing bigger dreams. Interesting choices, because I feel like that is something it does seem to be true, that people that value themselves, that think of themselves highly, that have a lot of self-worth, do tend to indulge a lot easier in inviting ecstasy or in pleasurable things and creating pleasure for themselves. Elevated levels of excitement. Okay, yeah, I can also see that, like the ecstasy aspect of it, the joy, and then allowing bigger dreams. And I like that one too, because it feels like, what would your life look like if you dreamed in a way where you did have higher levels of self-worth and experienced more excitement? Because that would be the bigger aspect of your dreams. So to roll out our chat today, you have anything that you find to be beneficial during this week, during the week of the new moon, during the week of your cycle, then please let me know, because I would love to try them out for myself. And I also think it would make an interesting comment section. And if you don't cycle track, but you're like intrigued now and kind of want to do it, you could do it so many different ways, but I feel like the best place to start is with a calendar, and specifically a monthly calendar. I love paper calendars, so that's why I'm using my agenda for this, because I never really knew what to use my monthly spreads for before. And this one has all of the months at the beginning of the book. And if you go to it, I included the phases of the moon first when planning my month. And then each day I go here and I put just a little like point form, how my body's feeling, how my mind's feeling, how my spirit's feeling, just keeping it track like that. And then after a couple cycles, you'll kind of start to notice patterns, and you'll be able to not only care for yourself better, but work with your energy better. All right, I'll tie it up. Anywho, that's my chat for the day. Any thoughts bounced off of you during today's chat, I would love to hear them. And without further ado, I do have coffee left, so I am cheersing you, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye.